any help. I don't know.
Well, I appreciate. We'll see. We'll find out.
Okay,
So, your husband's name was Robert,
that's correct. Uh-huh.
and he was the middle son, right?
That's correct.
And did you? You probably didn't see very much of Halbert, but
No, well, we didn't. We saw more of Halbert after our children were born,
uh-huh.
and he would try to come out. Are you getting an echo?
I'm not, but I'm not surprised that you are.
Okay.
Let me
Well,
try putting.
anyway, he would probably. We'd probably see him 3 or 4 times a year.
Oh,
You know,
really?
for short periods, like maybe a weekend or something. And at one point, he was doing a lot of traveling and speaking, and would try to route himself through and spend a weekend with us to see the kids.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
So,
Catherine sent me a picture of her sitting on his lap as a little, or he was reading to her or something, and
uh-huh.
another picture
Oh,
of him.
yeah, we went out one year for Christmas, and she was probably just about a little over a year.
Yeah, cute picture.
And then he had my son John when he was 6. He had him out for 2 weeks one summer, and then he had Catherine for about this, not quite as long. They spent a week with him.
Yeah, she told me about that.
Yeah, and the his current wife was not that much into children, so it wasn't a very happy situation for them.
Yeah.
They loved their grandfather, but she couldn't quite handle it. So that's why that was that way, I guess.
Uh-huh.
So
Well, one thing I'm curious about when I was doing the research to find you all, the friend who was a genealogist found census data and said that he was born as Louis Halbert Dunn, but then it changed to Halbert Louis Dunn. Do you know anything about how he changed his name?
well, I think it was probably because of his father. His father was Louis Halbert,
Oh,
and his father was a prominent doctor here in Minnesota. And it probably, I don't know when he changed it. He changed it when he went to medical school, maybe?
it seemed to be around then, yeah.
Yeah, and I suspect that's why.
So people
Because it
wouldn't confuse
yeah,
him, huh?
so he wouldn't be confused.
But he wasn't a junior. If he'd had the same name, you'd have thought he'd been a junior.
Yeah, you would have thought so.
Ah. And then he named his oldest son Halbert also.
His oldest son was named Halbert Brander,
Uh-huh.
Brander being his mother's maiden name.
Uh-huh. Brander, how do you spell that?
Brandeur.
Oh.
Halbert, the name Halbert, Halbert Louis Dunn that you're talking about, his mother's maiden name was Halbert.
Oh, that's where it comes from.
That's where the name comes from. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And Halbert never went as Halbert. He always went as HL,
Yeah.
as far as I know.
Uh-huh.
So,
Although he would have started out as LH, so it must have been after he was in medical school.
yeah, probably.
So how old was your husband and you when you were married?
How old was my husband?
Yeah.
28, I guess.
And you're a little younger?
Yeah, just 2 years
Uh-huh.
younger.
So you would have met Halbert when he was probably in his 50s or so, or?
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Or maybe even a little younger than that.
Uh-huh.
No, he would have been in about his mid-50s, I guess, early
Uh-huh.
50s.
Oh, I ran across his book at Johns Hopkins when I was a resident in preventive medicine in 1972, and it was on the clearance table for $2, and I decided to buy it.
Uh-huh.
Then I opened the
That was
first. Pardon?
that was the first book.
Yeah.
The first one. Uh-huh.
And I decided to open the first wellness center in the U.S. in 1975, the same month that he died. It's amazing.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh.
And
Now, what is your field?
preventive medicine.
I see.
And my dad was a doctor in Ohio, and I was born about 90 miles from where he was born, just to the north.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Huh. Paris, Ohio?
New Paris, yeah.
Yeah.
It was about 90 miles southwest of Bluffton, where I was born.
Uh-huh.
And the other doctor who got involved in wellness, a guy named Bill Hettler, was also born in Alliance, Ohio. So there's something about Ohio and
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Yeah.
early wellness. So,
Uh-huh.
well, there's
So,
go ahead.
how long were you at Johns Hopkins?
I was there in the residency for 3 years, and then I did another 2 years with the public health service.
I see.
So
when did you meet HL?
I never met him. No.
You never met him. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
I had no idea that I thought wellness was a kind of stupid word, and I thought it would never catch on. I liked the ideas in the book, but
Uh-huh.
I didn't think it was going to go very far. And
Uh-huh.
that I regret that a lot, because I was there in the last few years of his life, and if I had known, just didn't know.
Yeah. Well, what is happening to wellness now? There's a lot of wellness clinics, I know. Are they in any way connected, or are they using the same theory, or?
No, what happened is that his definition of wellness is much, much broader than about anything out there today.
Uh-huh.
And, I've followed in his footsteps in a lot of ways, but what happened was the medical people grabbed the word and turned it into a much more physical,
I see.
treatment-oriented thing. And so my work for the last 30 years has been trying to undo what they did to it.
I see. Okay.
The word became popular, but it lost the meaning. So
Uh-huh.
I'm actually giving a presentation about him this summer at the National Wellness Conference as to point out, in his book, he had much broader definitions and a much larger vision than about anyone
Yeah.
has today.
Can't you patent a word?
No, the actual word wellness goes back to the 1600s.
Uh-huh.
What he did was use the term high-level wellness,
I see.
and that was what made it unique.
Uh-huh.
But even then, you can't register or trademark a word like that, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
Well, he was what should I say? He was a brilliant man. He kind of knew what way he wanted to go, and I think he was pretty highly thought of, in anything that he ever did.
mm-hmm.
And he had quite a checkerboard career, really. When you think of it, he was a fellow at the Mayo Clinic, and then he went to Johns Hopkins. And I'm not sure if he was at Johns Hopkins as a fellow or if he was on the staff.
I didn't even know he was there. I'll have to research that.
Oh yeah, he was at Johns Hopkins. Dick, the youngest boy, was born when they were at Johns Hopkins. And then he came back to Rochester, and he was on the staff. And then from Rochester, he came to the University of Minnesota and headed up the University Hospital.
Oh, really?
Uh-huh. And from there, he went to Washington to Chief of U.S. Vital Statistics.
Right. Well, now, somewhere in there, it was his secretary that he ran off with, or?
No, what it was he went to a he went to a it was a very happy family. I mean, the boys and Cappy, their mother, was just this wonderful, wonderful lady. And they had a very happy family. Everybody thought, including the family. And he went off to some kind of a convention in Texas. And this woman was at this convention as a secretary to somebody. And somehow things happened. So that was it.
Like a weekend romance or something?
Well, yeah, and then she followed him to Minneapolis and insisted that this was it, and he was going to leave his family, and he did. So,
wow.
So that's how it happened. So as a result, Cappy, their mother, raised the boys, and she was a pretty fantastic woman. She headed up. You've probably never heard of it. It's called Gillette Crippled Children, and they have this hospital for crippled children. And during the polio epidemic in the 40s, they were full of these children that had the polio, and they've done fantastic things there, and they're still in operation. So anyway, as a result, she was doing that, and she raised the boys, and he would come and they'd only see him about once a year at that time.
How old were the boys when he left?
My husband was 10, and his oldest brother, Hal, would have been 12 or 13, and then Dick was about 8. So they had kind of mixed feelings about their father, you know.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Understand, yeah. So. And they had even less feeling about this woman, and she, of course, tried to be nice, I guess, but it just didn't work out. So.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
and she died not too long ago.
Oh, really? I didn't know she lasted a lot longer then, huh?
Oh, yeah. She, well, let's see, he died, what, in 78?
75.
75?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right, 75. And she just died, oh gosh, I would say maybe about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. She was in a nursing home all that time. And she was a real case. We never quite knew how we could stand to live with her. She was just a very eccentric person. And she had him, he couldn't eat this and he couldn't eat that. And whenever he'd come out to see us, we'd feed him everything that she wouldn't let him have. He'd have a ball. So.
How old? She must have been a lot younger then.
Well, I'm not so sure. Let's say she's one of these people that always appeared very old, but I think she probably, as I think about it, she probably was 8 or 9 years younger than he. Yeah.
Oh.
So.
Now, what do you remember of his parents and how he chose to go into medicine or any of that?
Well, his father was a doctor, and I was just, he was picked, he had one brother, Marshall, who was a big successful banker in New York City, and H.L. was picked as the one to go into medicine, I guess, and I just found some literature on this a couple of months ago. I was going through some stuff, and it was a letter that his father, H.L.'s father, had been writing to somebody, and why it was in this file, I don't know, but he was telling, and at this time H.L. must have been 16 or 17 years old, And he was telling this person what a marvelous surgeon H.L. was going to be, and that he would take him Saturdays and Sundays to the hospital with him, and that he would let him hold the knife to make the incision, and that he had this wonderful, wonderful hand to do this. This was before. This obviously was before